Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Wiz Talk with Chase. I am your host, Chase Coburn, and today I am joined by a very special guest, the Wizards radio play by play announcer for Monumental Sports Network, Dave Johnson. Dave, welcome to the show.
Yes, on the radio, as you know, and we're getting ready for another season of having fun on the radio. Remember, you can listen to the radio what I'm talking to you on right now. Your phone, it's right on the Washington Wizards app. Download the Washington Wizards app, click radio, and we always have something. We have what we call Wizards Radio 24/7. So there's always features, classic games. It's something. It's a must for every Wizards fan, and you can listen to our games, which will be starting pretty shortly in October.
Absolutely. For the audience who isn't as familiar with some of the other work that you've done, because you've done a lot also outside of your work with the Wizards, can you let other the audience know a little bit about some of the other work you do?
Well, for over 30 years, I was blessed to be the senior sports director at WTOP Radio, the all news station in Washington. I'm still the play by play voice on radio for DC United. For 27 years, I handled the television for DC United, and I've worked around town at NBC4 and Fox 5 and some other places. That's the trick to broadcasting. You just keep working. If you're working in broadcasting, you're doing okay, and I've been very blessed.
Absolutely, you're one of the more, I think, talented play-by-play announcers we know, and you've achieved some awards. You've won some awards for all the success that you've had. You've won 3 AIR awards for the best sportscaster in DC. You've also won an Emmy for your work with the Washington Capitals. What does it take to win prestigious awards and honors like that?
Well, you just work. I was kind enough to go to the DC Sports Hall of Fame just a couple weeks ago, and I, you know, when I started my career, not didn't start in DC, obviously. You just work and you try to do the best you can, and that's the secret. And you never, in my case, I never think, all right, I've arrived. I've got this. Am I confident? Yes. If I've been doing something for 40 years, hopefully I'm somewhat confident, but I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to get better.
Absolutely. Now, transitioning more to what you've done with the Wizards, I think probably one of the better memories I would assume would be when Michael Jordan was on the Wizards. I know you've been doing their announcing for a long time, so he was there when you were announcing. And obviously, Jordan wasn't in his prime at that moment, and he was only there for 2 years. But what was it like to have a guy like Michael Jordan on the roster, in the facility, and just a part of the organization?
Well, it was special because I was able to witness firsthand what made him so great, and what I just sort of touched on. Again, I'm not comparing myself touched on. I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan, but yes, he had already achieved 6 championships. He didn't have anything to prove anymore, but that's now not how he approached each and every day. And still to this day, he's probably the most competitive person I've ever witnessed firsthand. He just in every practice, if there was a shooting competition at the end of the practice, those shooting competitions would go on forever because he was determined to make it competitive and yeah, try to win. And so again, that's part of the whole life lesson is you don't necessarily relax. That doesn't mean you don't enjoy what you're doing, but if you want to continue to push yourself and achieve even more, um, you do like what Michael Jordan did. I mean, he just worked hard. There's no secret about it. And Father Time was his biggest opponent. If he had stayed healthier, we would have been a playoff team both years. He, gave everything he had. In fact, the first year he played with us, we were, I think, 26-21 at the All Star break. So he just was a tremendous competitor, but also just a great person. And um, I still remember before his first game back, we were at Madison Square Garden, in New York. It was an emotional time. It was just after 9/11, not too long after 9/11. And I still remember, there's a big crowd of reporters at the morning shoot, and I still remember him reaching over and grabbing my hand and saying, "Good to see you, my friend." And so I felt like, well, I shouldn't wash that hand for the next uh, weeks, but that was the is great a player. He was even a better person. He really prided or respected or put value, I should say, on loyalty. and if you were loyal to him, he was loyal to you. And I've seen him since. When he was in ownership of the Charlotte Bobcats, I still remember walking out to our team bus, and I just waved from afar, and I didn't want to interrupt. He was getting in his car with his family, and he actually came over to me and just nicely said, "How you been? How you doing?" So he didn't have to do that. So um, just a wonderful person, and people always, or not always, but have asked me. I don't have one autographed item from Michael Jordan because I thought at that time, you know what, I'm working with him, and so that's not a line I'm going to cross. So people keep saying, "Oh, you must have autographed this." No, I never did want to cross that line. What I have is just some great memories.
That's awesome, and it's great to hear also that different perspective. We always rave about what he could do on the basketball court, but to hear about what he's like as a person, and maybe he's also the greatest person of all time. No, I'm just messing around. Basketball wise, yeah, he's there, and I'm sure it was great to have him in DC. But the most recent era of Wizards basketball involved Bradley Beal, who was there for a decade. The Wizards made 6 playoff appearances with Beal in Washington. How much has the culture changed, I guess you could say, around the Wizards environment or in DC in general since he was traded last offseason?
Well, I think it's the other part of we look at the last decade or so, and it's just a reminder, and this is in every sport. Um, Health is so important, and I think about 2017, we're so close to getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and that really was the high point of John Wall and Bradley Beal playing together. The problem was from that point on, they really were not on the court consistently together because one or the other was injured. So, unfortunately, a window of opportunity can close if key players are hurt. And John Wall, you think about how he put his body on the line every night, and I think he paid the price for that physically. Um, so it's a situation where again, when uh, a couple of years ago, you look at a lineup where Kristaps Porzingis was certainly a factor in helping Boston, and you have Bradley Beal, and you think maybe he can be a playoff team again. And the decision was made that it, let's just go ahead and start over, and that's not a decision that an ownership or a team takes lightly, because it is not as simple as just saying, all right, we're going to start over, we're going to get a high draft picks, and then we'll automatically be a contender in 3 or 4 years. I offer up the Detroit Pistons as an example of that. Michael Jordan post um, Chicago Bulls, or the Chicago Bulls post Michael Jordan, it took them 7 or 6 years to get back to the playoffs. So, and that's not, we're hoping that our upward trajectory takes us back to the postseason in a quicker fashion. But what the goal is now is to develop a core that will be competitive. And so we're just 1 year in, and we're starting to figure out who we want going forward. Uh, in the drafting of Bilal Coulibaly in the summer of 23 was a signal that, okay, we're going to draft somebody who's young, who we're going to develop. And the same can be said with our draft pick this year, Alex Sarr. People say, well, at Summer League, we didn't see him score 30 points a game. Well, no, he was not supposed to. He's still a young player, but he has a tremendous, it's an overused term sometimes, but you want players with an upside that lets watch them grow. And that was what was fun about the team last year, watching them grow, quite frankly. I always use this story as, we're playing the Lakers at home, and the Lakers are up by, I forget the exact number, but LeBron and Anthony, everybody sits down, and so the Lakers put their reserves in, and we put our starters back on the bench as well, and put our reserves in. Next thing you know, LeBron and Anthony Davis are getting up off the bench because we've made it a 5-point game with like 25 seconds left. So this is what I'm quite frankly, I'm looking forward to again this season is how does Bilal Coulibaly grow? Alex Sarr, these players grow And while they're doing it, it'll be fun. Will it be fun looking at the standings and the win and loss column? No, but will be fun seeing how competitive they are in these games, because these are players fighting for NBA jobs and trying to develop their futures in the NBA and with the Wizards. So that's what makes it fun, and that's what made it fun last year, telling these stories, and it's a journey we're on, and it's not a journey where we're going to figure it out in the next 2 months. But when you do figure out, as Will Dawkins is our general manager, and he's done this in Oklahoma City, when you figure it out and you become a competitive team on a regular basis, boy, that's a joy.
It really is. And you mentioned being competitive and the team playing hard in some of these games. And I think a lot of that started when Brian Keefe was the head coach. I think he saw something in these players that really elevated their play. He was named to be the official head coach, the long term head coach, and no longer with the interim tag for this coming season. What are your thoughts around what Keefe did last year and what he can do overall with the Wizards?
Well, I just think, it's a situation where sometimes you do need a different voice. And, does Wes Unseld Jr. know about basketball? Can he coach basketball? Yeah, ask the Denver Nuggets and how he developed them. He was part of that staff that turned into an NBA champion. Brian Keefe brings, he's paid his dues, 20 years in the NBA, and he's been with the San Antonio Spurs. And again, you talk about an organization knows how to develop players. So, I watched him in practices, and he is somebody with a keen eye, with holds players accountable. Yet, if you listen to any of his press conference, he always makes it clear that he's in the journey with them, that he's not blaming players. It's about developing players, and
Right.
I think they felt that loyalty from him, and the players responded in kind. And it didn't surprise me that the interim tag was removed, because while I do believe it was a sincere situation where they thought, let's if anybody else is out there that's better for our situation, maybe they go and get him. But I think they evaluated what Brian Keefe did, and that yes, he's the perfect one to continue, quite frankly, what he started, because it was just getting going as we reached the end of the season. So,
Right.
let's pick up and let's get it going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love what Keefe did last year. And you saw Kevin Durant, he's thanked him multiple times now publicly about what he did to helping develop him early in his career. So we'll see if he could do the same thing with these guys on the Wizards. Now, obviously, Keefe will probably be the leader of the locker room as the coach, especially with a ton of younger guys. You mentioned the Wizards are going for these 19-year-old upside guys. But from a player perspective, who do you feel is the leader of the locker room? That's a player.
Well, I mean, right away, I'd probably have to, say Kyle Kuzma, because he's somebody that, by the way, wants to be here, and he's had options and he's had interest from other teams, but he's an NBA champion, and what I like about Kyle, many things I like about Kyle, but also uh, he experienced the championship as with the Lakers, where he was a role player. Let's face it, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, they were the players. But now, he comes to Washington and he's asked to do different things. He's asked to do more. And what's been exciting, again, we talk about young players developing. It's been exciting to see Kyle Kuzma develop into a player that is well, can play at an all-star level. So that's why I think he feels a leadership role in this team, uh, because look, he's been there. He's a champion, and if I'm a young player in that locker room, and I look over, I know that Kyle Kuzma knows what it takes to win a championship.
And I love definitely having Kuzma in DC. Dave Johnson, this has been amazing, but personally, I'm an aspiring play by play announcer, a sports broadcaster in general. There are many of us out there trying to get to the point where we could be the voice of a team like you have been for the Washington Wizards for many years now. If you had to give a piece of advice to an aspiring sports announcer or reporter listening to this right now, what would it be and why?
Well, do what you're doing. It's nothing replaces experience, and the beauty of what you're able to do is that lots of people can see your work. Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I was a young person, we did play-by-play in the tape recorders,
Right.
but we heard them. Our parents heard them. Or I put on play-by-play broadcasts for my mom. But now there is this technology and the internet, and so um, just keep doing, and that's you never know who's going to see you, who's going to hear you. But if you're not doing anything, I can guarantee you probably won't get noticed. So do what you're doing, and that's the advice: is to do, just do it. And but somebody else coined that phrase, "just do it." So I probably just got fined for saying that, but just do it. That's it.
Absolutely. Dave Johnson, thank you so much for joining us today, talking about some announcing, some Wizards basketball. We're looking forward to listening to you on the radio this year, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Again, it's simple. You young kids, we're all on phones, right? We're all staring at phones. Maybe you're watching this podcast on phone. Again, you just click the radio button on the Washington Wizards app, and you connect with us.
Absolutely. Dave, again, thank you so much for joining us. For the audience, we will wrap up here alongside the longtime radio play by play announcer for the Washington Wizards. I am your host, Chase Coburn, and we will see you next time right here from Wiz Talk with Chase.